Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Today I am with the lovely Lisa Gong Guerrero, who is running for county judge in Group 11 for Orange County, Florida. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you. I know you in so many different facets, but before we start, can you please tell me what a county judge in Group 11 of Orange County does?
County court judges preside over criminal and civil cases. For criminal, they preside over misdemeanor cases and criminal traffic offenses. And then also in civil cases, cases in controversy that's $50,000 or less. So your evictions, your small claims, those all come before a county court judge.
Okay, and now I've known you actually several years in so many different facets, which is so cool that we're sitting here today talking about all of this very technical lawyer stuff and judge stuff. But you are a community leader. I've known you in the circles of from my work with Makes Visible Florida through my Wallam Kung Fu Temple. You have been volunteering endless hours at different nonprofits and organizations. I see you all over, but of course you're also a Kung Fu parent, very engaged in young Gabriel's Wallam Kung Fu career. We've had him there since he was, like 3 or 4 or something, a really long time.
3.5. He started at 3.5.
Gosh.
I remember coming in here and I was telling him I think I was more excited than him. And I was like, okay, Sifu Mimi was like the model for Mulan. So, when you see her, you might recognize her. And I remember bringing him here because I wanted him to be in touch with his cultural roots.
Yeah.
I'm from China and, my husband is Colombian, so we don't get to speak Chinese at home. So I was hoping to bring him to Wallam so that he can learn Cantonese.
Yes.
And I'm really grateful that he's had that opportunity.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. And of course we're here in the Wallam Cultural Center. We got the Good Luck Dragon behind us and all of these things. But it's been really amazing actually to see him grow and mature into the student that he is. Hey, we always love his spirit, but it's amazing also because we have so much opportunity to work with families throughout this community, and you guys have been great because you take them to the tournaments. You are like the typical parents who will show up, get it done. It's so easy to talk to you and to be able to have honest conversations, which isn't always the case, I have to say, as a Kung Fu Sifu or teacher. For those of you who don't know, it's sometimes difficult. Parents actually aren't as engaged. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
It's a real
Thank you for giving him a
inspiration.
family atmosphere and environment. We love coming. He loves hanging out with his older Kung Fu sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
They're so welcoming to him. They look after him, and he's just learning so much, and you guys have really embraced him, and that's why we love Wallam.
Thank you so much. It's been our pleasure. But speaking of which, I actually found out much later because I knew you through all these community circles and of course as a Kung Fu parent, and then it was like, oh, you're also a lawyer, by the way. and not just a lawyer. I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about why you went into law, a little bit about your background, because every time I heard more and more about the work you were doing, I was just in awe. So, and I know nothing about law or lawyering. So please share.
So I was a prosecutor when we first started coming here to Wallam, and I became an attorney because I came to the United States when I was 5 with my parents. My parents brought my sister and I from China because they didn't really see a future for my sister and I, because in China, you have to be a male, you have to go to the best schools, and if you were none of that, you wouldn't really have the opportunities. So we moved here when I was 5. We lived with my grandparents. Actually, the 4 of us stayed in the same bedroom for a whole entire year before my parents could save up enough money to buy our own house. And I think growing up, I saw how much they struggled, not knowing, where to navigate, where to, go get things done. I had to translate for my parents when they went to go get their driver's license. And just seeing their struggle and the lack of knowledge with the legal system, I think really inspired me. And of course, my sister's always going to tell you that I'm a rule follower. And she's the rebel, and I was a rule follower. So she's going to tell you that I'm the serious one. And obviously, she wasn't surprised that I was going to go into law. So, I kind of defied my dad. I think my dad told me that he either wanted me to get a PhD, be a doctor, be a pharmacist, or an engineer. And I was like, how about a lawyer? And he was like, but I did it anyways. But before I became a lawyer, I took a detour. I went to the University of Florida. I became a consultant for 3 years, and I traveled around the country going to client sites, helping businesses optimize and, make their businesses more efficient. And then I decided, you know what, it's time to go back to law school, because I really wanted to do something that would make a difference in a community. And consulting was great. I was meeting a lot of new people, doing some great work, but I just didn't feel fulfilled. So I went back to law school, and I started at Barry and ended up in Orlando.
I love it. Well, I'm glad you ended up in Orlando, because, that's how we know each other. But did you find, you're like, oh, and I went to law school. And I know a lot of people who have attempted law school and have told me how challenging it is, and that it is actually not an easy path. Did you find it very, very challenging, especially having had a break?
It was challenging. I remember going through law school, I was like, I got started so late, and I felt like I was behind. But in hindsight, I think having that experience as a consultant for 3 years really helped me through my career as a lawyer. I always thought, since I had that business and technology background, I was going to be an IP lawyer. Okay. I never thought I was going to be a prosecutor. My mom was always like, prosecutor, you're going to be retaliated against. It's so dangerous. Yeah. Why are you going into that? But I interned at the state attorney's office and just fell in love with doing trials, and really felt at home, and that was a place where I could make a difference. And that's how I became a prosecutor and started in criminal law.
I'm actually fascinated, because I've been in the courtroom a few times for various things, no traffic tickets, don't worry everybody, I'm a safe driver, but I think like everybody else is like, is it like how it is on TV where, it's kind of dramatized? And what is the courtroom experience like through your eyes and your lens? Because I feel we all have this preconceived notion of whatever courtroom series, from Night Court all the way to Boston Legal, all the way to, all these lawyer shows. And I'm sure none of them have it quite right.
It is not as interesting as they portray in TV. It's actually really boring. There are some things that jurors can't hear, and we have to say it behind closed doors, and so jurors are always wondering what's going on. I myself was on a jury panel a couple months ago, and so I had that lens of like just not being able to hear everything, and being given very limited information. But being in the courtroom is, for me as an attorney, is so exciting, because you get to take something that is gray, and based on the law and the evidence, you can argue that no, this is really white, or this is really black. And so it's just how you are able to apply the law and the facts, and I think that's really exciting.
Wow. And how many years was that span of your I guess, from interning all the way through and working in prosecution?
It's been 18 years.
Wow.
I have worked at the state attorney's office for 18 years through 5 state attorneys, 5 administrations. And I've been very fortunate that through 5 administrations, I've either been promoted or been placed in management. So working my way up as a law student intern to eventually becoming the deputy chief assistant state attorney, supervising various areas in the office. Sometimes when we're working so hard, we don't really stop to think about how much we've accomplished. And so when I left the state attorney's office in March, I couldn't believe when someone told me that I was the first Asian American homicide prosecutor, bureau chief, and deputy chief assistant. I could not believe that. And so that's part of the reason why I want to just use my experience and, be a role model for the community, that, hey, someone who never thought that they could be a trial attorney or a prosecutor or a judge is right now going after it, and now being a judge, or, running for judge. I think that's so powerful for our community and for the future.
It's absolutely amazing. And I have to say, you know, you use the word fortunate, and of course, like, we all are very, very fortunate in this day and age, but I feel like, being the Kung Fu teacher I am, and Kung Fu being hard work, I think that it was clearly your hard work, your dedication, and your aptitude of following the rules, but also just it's there's something to be said for lasting through, like you said, 5 administrations and going through so many different bosses and having, you know, that experience. So kudos to you. It's definitely doesn't seem like easy work, and I think that people don't really realize what it entails, and that would be like a whole nother episode of how much is entailed in that. But you know, you mentioned that you want to be a role model. You want people to say, hey, you know, I can achieve this, because you right now, what you would tell your 5-year-old self when you moved here, like, you wouldn't imagine that you would be running for this position, and that you would have been doing this for so long. So I think why, I mean, is that really the primary reason, like, why at this point in your career you decided, okay, I'm going to take the next step?
I decided to take this step really, you know, having now been a mom, you know, I'm having to teach my son a lot of these principles of growing up, working hard. And, you know, my husband, who was his soccer coach for 5 years, has always told my son, you know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so that's how we coach our son. And my husband jokes that I'm like the assistant coach, or the manager. And so we're always constantly teaching him that. And I just started, you know, kind of listening to myself. And I'm like, you know what? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if I really want this and I don't go for it, I'm never going to get it, or I'll never accomplish it unless I go after it. And so I had to heed my own advice and had to, you know, go for it.
Yeah, and it sounds like essentially all of the experience that you've had over the, you say 18 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whew, 18 years, has basically led you to this moment in addition, because now you're going to, you've had so much experience in that same courtroom, in the same scenarios, and being able to have worked with other judges as well, like knowing what that job really entails. Like, I feel like all of that plays into how qualified you are for this position.
I think, you know, having been a homicide prosecutor and then was assigned to supervise county court, that really opened up my eyes about how, you know, county court is really a place where we need to have experience. Because county court is also the people's court. A lot of people represent themselves and their small claims. It's also in criminal. They assigned a lot of the law student interns and the newly licensed attorneys handling criminal cases. And so when I was supervising county court, I was supervising these young attorneys, these young interns who are making decisions on, you know, people's criminal history, whether or not to prosecute a case. And these decisions have impact on everyone's lives. And so we really need to have a judge who's experienced, who has a courtroom experience, the legal experience, to help guide some of these young attorneys and practitioners.
Yes, well, I am very much excited for you, and just unbelievably proud to know you and inspired by this, because I can tell you for sure, everybody, that I would never be running for public office. So it is super stressful. How has this campaign been for you? And because I am the Kung Fu teacher, I'm going to ask you about self-care, and during not just the campaign, but like, what do you do for yourself? Because it sounds like you are pulled in so many different directions, and finding a balance in life I find to be one of the most challenging things. But you always seem very happy and easygoing. You never show your stress anyway, so I'm always amazed. Like, tell me your secrets. Like, what do you do for self-care and to keep you know, your life balanced and stress-free?
So I think this year has been, you know, prioritizing myself. I have started working out. My husband and I, we frequently go fishing, go to the beach. We will take our son, and he would get bored quite quickly. But, you know, we try to spend some time away from work and just to disconnect. We go camping, which forces us to, you know, shut down our phones and just be present and in the moment. So that has really helped us kind of move along.
Yeah, I love all these very Florida
Yeah.
outdoor activities, which is really, we're so grateful that we have the ability to do so. We always hear people who are flying down here to go to the beach. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You can't do that year round. We're so spoiled here in Florida. And, you know, we talked about you being a role model for so many people to be able to say, hey, I can be a lawyer one day. I could possibly be a judge. I can attain these things. Who was a role model for you growing up, or even in your adulthood? Like, who is somebody that has really shaped, you know, how you think, and, you know, maybe that you model yourself after?
I think it really has to go back to, you know, my dad. You know, growing up, he, you know, taught us so many lessons, which as a kid, you're like, Dad, you're nagging. This is, you know, again, you're saying this. But he was really the one who taught us that, you know, that you're not going to get any handouts in life. That if you want to go somewhere, you want to achieve something, that you really have to work hard. And we saw how he worked hard. You know, my dad, when he came to this country, had to start all over again. So he worked in the kitchen. He was a janitor. He would work 2 jobs to kind of support our family. And so through him and through the hard lessons that he's learned, I think, you know, that's really what shaped my sister and I. My sister's also very accomplished. She's a CEO out in Singapore, and we're really proud of her. You know, I think we go through life, and a lot of times we're like wondering, why did we have to struggle? Why did we have to work so hard? But these are such great foundations for us, you know, and I think everything in my life has happened for a reason. And I'm so glad to have this opportunity to give back to my community. So I'm really excited, and I'd be honored to serve as Orange County Judge.
Yeah, well, I am excited for it, and I would love to encourage everyone to not just get out to vote, but also to get out and vote for Lisa, because like I said, I've known you for several years, and it would be just such a privilege to be able to help, you know, push you along on that journey, but also to see you up there to kind of be a role model for others, and also to be a fair judge, which I know you will be, because you're a great parent and a great teacher to others and a great lawyer, as well as a community advocate. It's been amazing to work with you in so many different facets and see you kind of in action. And so I absolutely hope you all get out there to vote. We're going to give you some really key reminders for voting dates, but I think people also don't realize local elections and having this tier here in August that we're coming up on in Central Florida is so important. People kind of look to the primary and they think that's the most important one. Like these are the decisions that impact our daily lives. These are the decisions that impacts your immediate community. I don't think people really understand that so much, but I'd love for you to share those important dates and why this election is so important.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of information out about judges, but judges are so important because they actually touch a lot of people, and they make decisions that, you know, that impact a lot of people in the community. Yeah. And so I encourage them to do their research. They can go find out more about me, about my qualifications at electlisaforjudge.com. We have some important dates that we want to remind the people who are watching at home. That August the 8th, if you haven't received your vote by mail ballot, that is your deadline to request for your vote by mail. And then also early voting starts August the 5th. The last date to vote is August the 20th, which is the primary election day. So, you know, please plan ahead, because sometimes in Florida we have a lot of hurricanes and rain, so you don't want to wait until August the 20th. If you want to vote at the polls, you can start voting on August the 5th.
Yeah, and I highly recommend that. And if you do vote by mail or do get your ballot early, you can drop them off at the polls, and you can also mail it in. But please make sure you actually double check. Like, you can go online. I'll link all of that here for everyone, where you can check to make sure your ballot has been received, because we want all those votes counted, especially if you were voting for Lisa. So thank you so much. Is there any other reminders or anything else we should know? Make sure you guys follow on Instagram and Facebook.
Elect Lisa for Judge on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, Lisa, everybody, don't forget, get out there and vote.
Thank you.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to The Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram or Facebook.